First one up here. What's left of Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins? I grouped these two specifically together, Scott, because they're older, although Rodgers is quite a few years older. You know, he's going to be 41 during the season. Older quarterbacks coming off Achilles who have spent zero time with their current NFL teams because Rodgers, he was there last year, but he lasted 4 plays. Kirk Cousins is moving to a new team with the Atlanta Falcons. We don't have to talk about these guys, but I did realize, Scott, while putting together this outline, and you contributed the vast majority of the questions. They're all great questions, but it dawned on me that we have a lot of health-related questions with big-name quarterbacks this year generally. I mean, Joe Burrow, Deshaun Watson, you can group into this. Also, the guy we're going to talk about in the next question, he is another player with a big health question, but I wanted specifically to focus on Rodgers and Cousins because I think there's a bit of a through line there with their older quarterbacks that are trying to support big-name players that we want to hit in fantasy, like Garrett Wilson, like Drake London, like Bijan Robinson. So, Scott, what do we want to see out of camp? What are you looking to hear? Any clues on what we get out of Rodgers and Cousins this year?
Yeah, how dare you leave Kyle Pitts off that list of Atlanta players we're trying to unlock? When it comes to the quarterbacks, right, you're at the fork in the road. You can talk about the old guys. You can talk about the young guys. We'll get to them in a minute. But it's just interesting how there's a bifurcation there. Last year, this time, I'm like, Garrett Wilson's going to the moon. And he didn't even get over the George Washington Bridge because obviously the Jets season ended 4 snaps in. And it's just kind of funny that Aaron Rodgers, walk-in Hall of Famer, multiple MVP winner, surprisingly a light bag in the playoffs. They found some strange ways to lose playoff games. But now it's like Aaron Rodgers just a conduit, right? We don't really care if we draft Aaron Rodgers or not, whatever. He's super flex, backup quarterback, fine. All we want, Aaron Rodgers has one job to do. It's just make the offense, give it more buoyancy, and make Garrett Wilson a star. You'll get Breece Hall in the red zone more often, get more octane in this offense. Could the Jets be a playoff team? Could the Jets be the AFC East champion? That's all this stuff is in play. If Aaron Rodgers is average, if he's a little above average, if he's good, nobody's expecting or asking him to be great. We just want Aaron Rodgers to be capable of playing 4 months of football because the clown car they've had, most teams are screwed if the backup has to play. And a good backup quarterback is Gardner Minshew, who was, that 100-mile donut that you put in there. You don't really want him to play the full season. The Colts made the best of it. He was okay. He's an okay backup. And the Raiders think he might even be their starter. We'll see about that. But Aaron Rodgers, we don't need you to be an MVP anymore. Just make Garrett Wilson a monster. Just make Breece Hall justify the ADP he has. Well, he'll be the 2nd or 3rd pick in a lot of leagues. And some people think he might be the best running back in fantasy football, period. This Jets offense is all going to be held together by Rodgers, even though we don't necessarily want to draft him. So there's an answer I'd love to have because we're taking Breece Hall as a top 5 pick, maybe a top 2 or top 3 pick. We're still taking Garrett Wilson. And that 2nd round for receivers is really kind of strange this year. How do you feel about Olave? How do you feel about Marvin Harrison Jr. right out of the box? It's not, the 2nd round used to be a really comfortable place to draft receivers. I don't think it is as much, but man, that gets a lot smoother if Garrett Wilson is great. And I think the talk is a lot simpler with Atlanta because I feel better. Cousins is younger. There's more pieces in that offense. Obviously, Arthur Smith is gone, and everybody in fantasy is happy about that. Now he's Pittsburgh's problem, but the quarterbacks were so bad. You could asking London and asking Pitts and asking Bijan Robinson to survive with the quarterback play they've had recently. It was a really difficult ask. And Zach Robinson taking over that offense is really fun too. He's from the Sean McVay tree. So the Falcons have that easy schedule. They have those indoor games. I think they have a chance to be one of the most fantasy friendly teams because there's just so much star power here. And Kirk Cousins has always been really good to his star players. So that to me feels like a smoother transition. I think Rodgers is more of a speculative player this year based on his career path and his age and everything. But I would love to know right now. I'd love the genie to come out of the bottle and tell me, yeah, don't worry about it. Aaron Rodgers is good. Don't worry about it. Kirk Cousins is healthy, and this Michael Penix thing is going to be down the road. They're kick the can. I still don't understand that draft pick. I never will. But this is a potential. These are players we're drafting early. Even if we don't necessarily want to draft Cousins and Rodgers as our starters, we're drafting their skill position talent early. So we need to know that the connective tissue of this offense is okay.
I mean, 4 guys from these 2 teams, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, Garrett Wilson, and Drake London, are top 17 picks in best ball drafts like right now. top 17 picks from two of the worst offenses in the league last year, two of the most unwatchable offenses in the league. So yeah, we are putting a significant amount of weight on these two guys' shoulders. And I'm with you that I generally feel better about the Atlanta, like I feel better about the Atlanta ecosystem. One, because, and there's your first drink of training camp, Scott. The Atlanta ecosystem, I think Zach Robinson's going to be better than Nate Hackett as a play caller. They do have more surrounding talent there. I think the offensive line's a little bit more proven. I also think, by the way, they're going to need to push that offense a little bit because that defense in Atlanta could be a bottom 5 unit. You're not going to get that in New York. So New York has the advantage here. I think if I had to pick who's going to be the better football team this year, I think I'd go with the Jets, but who's the better fantasy environment? I do think that's Atlanta. And also, by the way, Scott, like one thing to consider here is, just the last time we saw these two quarterbacks play extensive action, I think overall, yes, 100% Aaron Rodgers, better quarterback at his peak. You know, he's one of the top 5 quarterbacks that I've ever seen play the game, like just with my own 2 eyes, throw out stats and accomplishments and all that. But the last time we saw Aaron Rodgers play, he was averaging 217 yards per game and 1.5 touchdowns per game. I don't think that guy, now, and stats aren't everything, and Garrett Wilson's a much better receiver than any of the guys he was playing with that year, you know, Christian Watson, Allen Lazard, whatever. That doesn't tell the whole story, but I think the guy that we saw in 2022 is not enough to get Garrett Wilson to the moon. Like, I think we need a slightly better version of that, which I think can come if he's engaged and all the stuff that he was last year, that jacked up about being with the Jets. I wonder if that's still present, or is the honeymoon over? And obviously the injury question, whereas Cousins, last time we saw him, he was still a really good quality quarterback in the league, but he's just historically been a more volatile and streaky player.
I'm glad you mentioned the Atlanta defense. At some point this summer, I'll probably do the top carnival offenses for fantasy football, which is the teams that can move the ball and teams that can't stop other teams. So it just sets up for 30 to 27 football games where there's tons of fantasy goodness. And man, the Falcons have all the ingredients. It's just don't screw this up, Zach Robinson. You're the chef. Don't screw this up, Kirk Cousins. You're in the kitchen too. The Falcons could be one of those. You know, when you're setting up on Sunday, what teams are going to watch? Who's on my primary screens? Because let's face it, nobody watches one game at a time anymore. We're all watching multiple screens. The Falcons, they could have a dedicated spot on my TV this year. That's how excited I am about that offense.